back to my super secret project for Buddy. I have skipped a few steps for you guys, but I am going to show you what I did on another piece of wood. I just didn't have an opportunity to record this part, but let me show you, because I recorded building the form, and I ordered a few little trinkets to go inside the epoxy pour. So let me show you what this one is going to be like. So just as a heads up, this board here was one solid slab, and I'll show you an example. If you see over there, this is kind of what that one looked like, but I cut it down the middle. And I cut it down the middle and I chipped off all of the bark and I sanded this smooth. So I basically cut it down the middle and then I inverted them to where the bark sides were facing each other. And I put it in my form here just as like a dry fit, just to make sure. Now there is a gap. There is a little bit of a gap here, and that's okay. The resin will just make its way and around it. And if I don't like it, I can just cut it or plane it all the way to the wood, or I can leave it as a kind of a protective edge around it. I'm not sure how I will work with that. And then these gaps here I'll just fill in with extra epoxy. So this is gonna be a Viking table, a Viking themed table. So I've got these runes, some, fake little coins, this axe that I got online on Amazon, and these little raven, they're fake, but they're like little raven skulls. So that's it. And then I just kind of put it all in here and just to see how it's gonna go. Now this is a cosplay, and if you don't know what cosplay is, it's basically just like a pretend dress up type costume axe. It's flimsy, but it's realistic in nature, and I didn't want to spend $100 or more on an axe that was just going to be encased in resin. So I got a good look-alike one online, and we're going to encase this one instead. So I'm trying to do this on a budget, but all these materials will add up over time. So anyway, this is what I'm going with. Now I did print out some additional things. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them or not. I printed out some old-timey maps. I'm not sure how or if I'm going to cut these out and use them behind the scenes at all, just for layering effects, but we'll see. Because right now this is kind of busy looking, but it is what it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in first and I'm going to coat these pieces of wood with a layer of epoxy. I'm going to paint it on because I'm going to seal this really well. And then I'm going to come and pour my first layer, a thin layer of epoxy. And then while it's still tacky, I'm going to come in and lay these in here so they sit in really well. And they're going to stick. Otherwise, I'm going to have to individually glue these down while I pour the deep pour. So while the first thin layer is poured and setting, I'll come back and I will set these all in. I'm not going to pour the thin layer while these are down. I'm going to pull everything up and then set them back down. Plus, I'm considering tinting the bottom layer, probably like a deep blood red or something Viking-ish. So I'll do that. I'll tint that with some mica powder, which I have for my soap making stuff. All my mica powders are in here. So I'll pick a mica powder that works and then just mix it in the resin. So now I'm about to mix the first part of the coating of the wood. So I've set up a little workstation over here where I can coat this wood completely with the first layer of resin. Now, this was not the large deep pour kit that I bought online. This is something I found at Home Depot, and it was a smaller kit that I felt would work well to just coat the wood first. I didn't want to open up all the deep pour stuff just to coat it. So I'm going to use this small kit that I got at Home Depot. I think it was $25 to do to do it. Now this is going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. The deep pour is a 2-to-1 ratio. So just be aware that this one is typically for like a finish, right? Like a high gloss finish, something that you'd see at the top of a table. I'm going to use it just to coat the wood and to seal the wood up. And then I'll pour the deep pour on top of that. You can combine different resins, epoxies, as long as you pour them at the appropriate times. So I'm going to start with this. You do need plastic containers. Don't use glass because it can heat up and you don't want it to accidentally heat up too much and then you've got an explosion of glass on accident. Okay, so I'm gonna use this full amount. I don't know, I don't wanna run out in the middle of my project and have to come back over here and mix because it's gonna take about 12 minutes total to mix. I don't wanna have to stop what I'm doing in order to add more. So I'm gonna use this whole kit to do both pieces. And this is my first one, so it's kind of like a trial and error thing. Okay, so the instructions were to pour 1 equal part in one bowl, 1 equal part in the other, and then pour B into A. But because I'm using the same thing here, I'm just gonna go ahead and pour. No, you know what? I don't think this will all fit in here. I'm gonna just go ahead and pour. This is A. This is A. So I'm gonna pour A in here. Now, with this type of resin, it's the 1-to-1 and it's like a quicker dry resin. We kind of have to use it pretty quickly after we get it mixed in. It's not gonna stay liquid for very long like the deep pour would. You have to hand mix this kind of slowly because if you use like an actual mixer with like your drill, it will incorporate way too many bubbles. So I'm actually gonna let this kind of sit and drain a little bit over here. All right, and then it says add B into A, and this is the hardener. So we're gonna go ahead and add this one in. And I have just a paint stir stick that I'm going to use to combine these. All right, so let's get to mixing. Just mix slowly and make sure that you're scraping all the sides and on the bottoms too to have it equally incorporate. It's going to turn out hazy at first and then it should clear up once you're done mixing. Okay, my timer just went off and I have been scraping the sides. Probably not the best container to use just because the bottoms have a little bit of a divot and I have to make sure that I'm getting in there pretty well. But I'm going around scraping the edges pretty well, and I've done this for about 7 minutes. It's fully clear, just with some bubbles. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my little brush and paint this on and coat the wood completely. I'm going to start with the back side and then flip it over the front. I'm glad that I put this drop cloth down. It's got a very syrupy pancake syrup consistency, so spreading with this little foam thing is a little difficult. So this is what the first, I kind of just poured and squished as much as I could in this little, this got a lot of bubbles, but I'll take a heat gun to that in a little bit and pop those. But I just basically poured and squished my little foam thing into all the crevices that I could. And then this is what this looks like, and I'm gonna do this one, and then I'm gonna flip them both over.
All right, can you hear me? Let me take this off.
Man. So, definitely use a respirator when working with epoxy. The fumes are rough. So yeah, I had to put that on because especially I don't know about this deep pour, but the 1-to-1, the one I just did to coat the wood, no matter how many doors, windows, fans, it was strong. So I ended up using a respirator, and I'm outside right now, so I'm okay, but when I go back in the office, I'm gonna put that back on. I'm gonna try to explain some things out here because you're not gonna be able to hear me with that mask on. But I have fully coated both slabs. They're down in the frame. I have these little blocks that I'm gonna set on top of the wood, and then I'm gonna clamp them down, because once I pour the resin into the frame, wood wants to naturally float. So I'm gonna hold the wood down to the frame when I pour it in. Now, I'm also just gonna do a thin layer of color. I'm not gonna do the whole thing black, or else you won't be able to see all the little details, right? So I'm gonna do a thin layer of black, let that set for a little bit, and then I'll go in and place my items, let that set for a few hours, and then I will go back and coat the entire thing in clear. So I have my deep pour jugs here. I've got my A and my B, and these are my deep pour, and I bought a 6-gallon kit. So I've got 2A and 1B, but because I'm doing a smaller, a smaller, thinner layer of resin, I have my black mica powder here. I'm gonna go with black, and I'm gonna mix it in this bucket, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So I'll have to do some math to figure that out. It's 2A to 1B mix ratio. So I'm going to do some math real quick and figure out exactly how much I want to pour in here first. Be right back. Okay, I've done all the math, and I won't bore you with the details, but basically I need 26 ounces of B and 53 ounces of A. And I'm gonna mix this for a good 6 minutes with this stick blender here, and then I'm gonna add in my colorant. So I'm going to get that going now. just set this down on the ground so it's safer and mix. Okay, so I've mixed this for 6 minutes. It's kind of bubbly because it's pretty aerated, but I have 1 gram of black mica powder. I'm gonna add it in, and then if I think it's too light, I'll add in more, but I'm gonna start with 1 gram. Okay, I think 1 gram is actually good for what I'm going for. It's pretty dark. So I'm gonna bring this in, and like I said, I won't be able to talk through the mask, so I'm gonna bring you in, and if I have to talk over later what I'm doing, that's what I'll do. Okay, not a fan of how that turned out. It's way too thin. I think it's just because it really ran underneath the wood and all around, so I need to do probably that exact same measurement, plus I want to do a darker pigment. So I'm just going to layer that on top, and I'm going to do that now. All right, guys, this is a table update. We are about 24 hours in to the first pour. This is what it's looking like. And I am going to document this just because I made a mistake. And this is my first attempt at doing anything like this, and I just want to share my mistakes with you guys. And then, of course, if anyone is trying this out for the first time and they want to tackle a massive project like this, then maybe I could help you. First of all, I used this epoxy kit over here for this top to seal the wood, and this has dried really fast, cured really fast. However, this part over here, whenever I did this part of the wood, it heated up really, really hot, and actually, oh, look at there, I'm about to show you something. Might as well show it to you now. Hold on, let me wipe my hand. It heated really hot, and the container that I had it in was smoking. So whatever happened with the first time when I did this, I couldn't even pop the bubbles with the heat gun. It was just really hot. So I'm gonna have to sand this down, this area down, and which I'm going to sand the top down anyway, but this side area, I am probably gonna have to figure that out. But let me tell you about this. So this resin is different from this resin. This is a deep pour resin. This is a 1-to-1 resin. This is a 2-to-1 resin. It's a different ratio as far as the hardeners to the resin compound. Me doing soaps, you know, you guys know that I make soaps and I make all the things. I always measure by weight. I measure everything on a scale, make sure everything is precise, like to the gram. Even when I make bread, sourdough starter and all that. So in my mind, I just immediately did a 2-to-1 ratio of the resin to hardener by weight. However, most brands of resin, I have come to find out, measure in volume. So what that means is it's not by weight, it's by volume. So if you had 2 gallons of the resin, you need 1 gallon of the hardener. The hardener by weight is heavier. So I know that sounds kind of complicated. Long story short, because I measured this deep pour by weight and not by volume, I added more hardener than I was supposed to. Now, because it's such a thin pour, this was only about 1/4 of an inch deep, I contacted the manufacturer and they said, give it a while, like give it a day or 2 to cure and see where you're at and see if it doesn't set up. If it doesn't, I have to somehow scrape this all out. I want to show you what it looks like at 24 hours, the consistency of this. I have a little plastic fork I've been using. But basically, when you touch it, it's pretty tacky. And I would say what I would say was like gelled. It's not super liquidy, but it goes right back down into itself. And eventually it will just become flat again. So, and you might think, well, if you added too much hardener, wouldn't that make it harder? And no, that's not how that works, because math and science and chemistry. If you add too much hardener, which some people have done on purpose to try to speed up the curing process, it can actually make it softer, which is my fear, that I might have added a little bit too much hardener and this may not ever solidify. So this 1-to-1 right here is super hard. It's set up really nice. It's almost like glass. But the 1-to-1 you can't do a deep pour with. The 1-to-1 is just a tabletop, very thin pour. This resin is meant to be poured up to 4 inches thick. If I were to pour 4 inches of this, the whole thing would smoke and explode because the heat is just way too much concentrate. But this right now, we're 24 hours in, right around, and we're sitting at, we were hovering 79, 80 degrees in some areas. Looks like we're at 70 something. Yeah, so the ambient temperature in the room right now is 77 degrees. I kind of cranked up the heater because we've been having some lows in the 50s and 40s, and I wanted to make sure that this temperature in the barn was around 77 right now. But I will say, I only started that this morning. So this has been at this temperature since, I don't know, 8 a.m. and it's now 5 p.m. So all day yesterday, we were working in the mid-60s, and colder temperatures can slow down the curing time. So that might also be a reason, I don't know, that it's taken a while to set up. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on my mistake, and if you're trying to do this for the first time, make sure you actually read the instructions, which I feel like I'm pretty pretty good at reading instructions. I don't know what I was thinking or why I was thinking 2 to 1. I'll just measure it out, 2 parts one and 1 part the other, and wait. But yeah. So it's not like crazy far off, but this is like chemicals. So you could just be the minute amount off for it to just not want to work for you. So fingers crossed that my mistake wasn't too extreme. And I'm gonna give it another day, see what happens. And by tomorrow, tomorrow afternoon, it'll be 48 hours. Hopefully it'll thicken up some more. I did reach out to the manufacturer. They said to give it a couple days. That's what I'm gonna do. And if it doesn't set up, somehow I have to scrape all that out. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be messy. I really hope I don't have to. It's so gummy and thick, and even just me accidentally touching my finger in there, it's like super, super sticky. It's gonna be a big mess if I have to scrape this out. I really hope I don't have to. But anyway, that's where we're at. We're learning and growing together.
On the Denman homestead, where the sun sets golden in the west, we live in harmony with nature, doing what we love best. From the garden to the kitchen, and the bees inside their hive. On the Denman homestead, come along and plant, nourish, thrive.